Hi, my name is Pierre Lynch. I work in the product management team as a lead technologist with IXIA. IXIA is a networking company that provides solutions for network optimization and security resilience and application performance. We were the test partner with ONUG for the SD-WAN and the NSV working groups for testing the top 10 requirements for each of the working groups. As such, we were co-author of the test plan itself. We supplied the test solutions to be able to execute those test plans, as well as the configurations and the support to the companies that were participating. The first slide, I'm going to just simply quickly go over what the test plan did. So this shows for the NSV group the overall architecture taken from the ONUG white paper, which is a slightly modified but generic NFV architecture taken from NEC. So it shows the infrastructure part down at the bottom with the virtualization and hardware resources, offering virtual compute storage and network, services that are virtualized on top, and then the Mano part towards the right for management and orchestration. The test architecture used for most of these tests was illustrated here. Basically, it was a virtualized system with possibly switches underneath, an external IP network with possibly the presence of physical network devices here outside of this ecosphere there with virtualized services as well. Outside of all this was another virtual system containing the test solution used for these tests. In this case, we used IXIA's IXLoad Virtual Edition, which is a stateful subscriber and server emulation tool for layer 4 through 7 testing. So that's the basic setup. There were variations depending on each individual test case, but the variations were like either the presence or absence of physical network services here. Sometimes there was a different virtual platform as well to test the migration of virtual services, etc. But basically, it was variation on this theme, and that's it. The methodology used, there were 10 top requirements for the NSV working group. Each requirement had one test case, and together those 10 test cases made up the test plan. Each one of the test cases, we formalized it, had an objective, an architecture, which was the variation of the diagram I showed before, prerequisites, things that had to be established and in place before running the test, and then the procedure itself. What was the traffic and how to initiate it, etc. So the test procedure, the steps themselves. Verbal expression of the expected results. What was this meant to show at the end? And then more mathematical validation conditions, meaning it had to have these thresholds, etc. The test plan was common for all vendors participating in this testing exercise. One point that's different here is the services were not the point of the test. Okay, it was typically either the SDN or the NSV part that's part of the test, that's the focus of the test. Whether the service was a load balancer or whatever, we didn't test that functionality. It wasn't the point. They were there and they needed to be there in line, but it wasn't the point of the test. Okay. The traffic consisted mainly of HTTP. It was basic traffic of 100 clients and a server, and unmodified end-to-end. The IXLoad simulated both of them. And then when it came time, we provided the tools and the configurations to all the participants. Everybody got ready, they pre-tested, everything worked well with support. Then came the validation part where it was done in the customer labs and NEC's labs, where we witnessed the testing through WebEx. And we would just ask to see certain results, et cetera, et cetera. But then we witnessed everything and were able to put a thumbs up and thumbs down. And in this case, 8 out of 8 thumbs up. And that's it. Any questions on that?
Sorry. The whole point of this is really just to establish the usefulness of the test, the authenticity of the test, that it was vendor agnostic and independent, the partnership with IXIA and all that. Really just establishing a baseline of that this is a valid testing criteria. We've really proved something meaningful here. Yeah.
The goal was to demonstrate functionality, and it successfully did that. There's no load aspect whatsoever or anything like that. Stress. Not yet. Not yet.
And servers pretty light, enough to prove functionality, but not scale. Yeah.
If you look at the requirements, none of them expected scale to begin with. Okay.
Testing's one of those things that when you do it, it's really, really interesting. When you watch someone else do it, it's always hard to get it.
It's not the sexiest business on earth, but if you're a geek, it is. It's fun to work that because we get to see all types of technologies at the forefront. So
it's really hard to frame questions that have relevance and meaning, like to expand it out, because you ran a test and you got a result. Thanks. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, if you're used to testing, you can question the test.
I could, but I don't think there's anything to be proven by that. What we're saying in these tests, I think, is that we've started to get to the point where we can actually test them, and the vendors are willing to put their products up for testing.
We can prove them across one test tool across multiple vendors, meaning it's working, it's interoperating correctly.
At some point, at least the vendors are now willing to get up and participate in these tests, where we haven't seen any of that before because the vendors have been reluctant to engage. Let's leave the hyperbole about why and wherefores and which vendors still haven't put their gear up for testing, because we know who they are. But it's a start to reassure customers that things are moving forward.
It's also nice to see the same tests being run across all the vendors, as opposed to the usual, which is the vendors pay for their own testing.
Yeah.
They're going to largely test the things that are most important to them, and
Well, the things
not
that
test the things that that they may not want publicised. So.
Yes.